Rhianna and Luciella are finally here in epicseven, and they are easily one of the most important PvP releases that we've had in a while. They're the first ever 5-star Dark Thief duo, and likely the first and most important thing that you'll notice about them is their base speed. They do in fact have 132 base speed, which makes them by far the fastest character in the game right now, but they're not just fast, they also have extra turns, strips, defense breaks, blinds, fears, ignore damage sharing, 70% evasion from the start of battle, and follow-up attacks. So today we'll be going over how Arnell work, how to build them, what teams they'll fit into, where they'll be used, and whether you should pull for them. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed or learned something from today's video, and let's start with the kit. Despite being a singular character that you pull for, Arnell are still true to their theme in being a character with two different sides or kits. Rhianna is more of the debuffer, and Luciella is more of the damage dealer. During battle, they swap between each other, and both sides have different effects. To understand how they work though, let's start with the S2 with Rhianna. Rhianna's S2 attacks the enemy, dispels 2 buffs, inflicts bind and defense break, and then swaps to Luciella and grants an extra turn. If the target has a debuff after this attack, Luciella follows up with Waning Moonslash as an extra attack. Now, since Rhianna gains effectiveness based on speed, this means that building them fast also helps them land these debuffs more consistently. For Luciella, her S2 grants herself attack buff, attacks the enemy, swaps back to Rhianna, and grants an extra turn. If the target is at 50% HP or lower, as we mentioned earlier, Rhianna will follow this up with Half Moon Slash as an extra attack and try to finish the enemy. Now, their skill 3 is where both twins attack together. Luciella attacks all enemies and ignores damage sharing against heroes, and this is pretty relevant with characters like Estelle, Christy, and Lady of the Scales being pretty popular right now. Next, we have Rhianna, who dispels 2 buffs from all enemies and inflicts fear. This shouldn't really need much of an explanation, but applying fear to an enemy team while also stripping at the same time is pretty powerful in terms of tempo and in terms of being able to eliminate the enemies quicker, but following this they gain a barrier. Now, regarding both of their skill 1s, this also changes depending on which twin is active. Rhianna's S1 applies erosion, and if it crits, it can detonate erosion effects. Luciella's S1 grants herself attack buff, attacks, and absorbs part of the damage dealt as health. Now, in terms of builds, the first stat that you'll likely prioritize is going to be speed. With 132 base speed, you'll likely want to take advantage of this as much as possible. As a result, speed set is the obvious main choice for your 4-piece set. As for 2-piece, this is likely going to be whatever gives you the most speed. This of course can be crit, hit, health, defense, or pretty much anything else, but of course you could definitely consider using the new fervor set, though it's highly unlikely that you'll be able to get the most speed out of these new sets, as you'll need at least one piece that's super fast on fervor set if you're looking to maintain the 2-piece effect. Now, the other thing that you should know is that you'll still want to hit 100 crit rate with this character. After speed and crit rate, you'll want attack, crit damage, and some effectiveness depending on your build, but to be more specific, Rhianna wants effectiveness to lend her strip, blind, defense break, and fear, while Luciella will want damage. That said, because Rhianna gains effectiveness based on speed and Luciella gains crit damage based on speed too, stacking speed by itself is likely the most important part of this kit. For artifacts, their main option will be Butterfly's Baptism that you can obtain from the event exchange, Judge's Haven, and other options like Violet Talisman or Shadow Wind 7 can also be considered, but these are definitely going to be more niche. Stat goal wise, as much as I'd love to give you one to follow, pretty much just get 100 crit rate through any means, ideally with a crit damage neck, then find something like damage and effectiveness depending on your gear. Now, in terms of teams, Rhianna and Luciella can currently fit into basically any PvP team. They're not locked only to cleave, only aggro, or only turn 2, and with this, for turn 2 or standard players, they can be a strong first pick because they are fast, hard to kill, and also apply a lot of pressure. You can also use them with characters like Salome, Perfumer Biblis, Estelle, Emil Yulha, or Ruel if you're planning to play as a slower or turn 2 player, but this sort of team will give you safety, sustain, revive, disruption, and damage at the same time. For cleave or aggro drafts, this also makes sense where you could have a draft that looks something like Rhianna and Luciella, Salome, Briarwitch Iceria, and then 2 flexible picks including things like Diane, Strays, Commander Pavel, Freeren, or so much more. In these drafts, Rhianna and Luciella will give you speed contest, strip, defense break, fear, ignore damage sharing, and will damage by itself. So whether you play fast or slow, they're definitely going to be useful. Now, in terms of likely where you'll find Arnell, the main place is obviously going to be RTA. A character with 132 base speed, 70% evasion, and basically the laundry list of every single feature that they have is going to be very hard to ignore in draft, and they immediately already affect the current speed meta. They also apply pretty good pressure to damage sharing teams at the moment, and they can likely force the opponent to respect them even from a first pick. They're also likely to be strong in arena and guild war offense, especially against teams that rely on buffs or damage sharing to survive, but as for PvE, their kit doesn't really seem suited for it, though new PvE could be introduced or something like Hall of Trials could be used alongside them. As for counters, RNL don't really have one obvious weakness from their kit alone. Anti-evasion units of course could help, but because RNL are so fast, these units don't get to do as much as you'd think against her. Units that punish extra attacks or certain skills can also be annoying for RNL, and with this you may find characters like Moon Bunny and Lionheart Sermia to be annoying, though RNL doesn't necessarily have to always trigger them immediately. They can instead open with their skill 3, strip, fear, and still get value, which is pretty powerful even by itself, but the recently released Salome can also be equally annoying because of her likely having something like Sweet Miracle and then being able to copy someone on the team. Very tanky revive teams with Ruel can also make it sometimes difficult to finish the game quickly, but if you have characters like Commander Powell or Briarwitch Iseria to fix this issue, this also shouldn't nearly be as big of a problem as you'd think. Now let's move to whether you should actually pull for RNL. Honestly, if you care about PvP, the answer, short and simple, is yes. They're one of the most important releases that we've had in a while, and they are by far the fastest unit in the game. They can fit into basically any PvP team, and their kit has a lot of useful effects. Again, if I were to laundry list it down, it's a strip, defense break, blind, fear, ignore damage sharing, extra turns, follow-up attacks, 70% evasion, and free stats that they get just for investing in speed. For cleave players, they look pretty insane. For aggro players, they also look pretty crazy. For standard and turn 2 players, they're also a pretty strong first pick, especially if you're afraid of being cleaved too. So unless if you only really care about PvE at the moment, this feels like a very difficult set of characters to skip. With this guys, RNL are no longer just an artifact, they're finally a playable hero, and damn are they strong. Them being 132 base speed alone already makes this pretty crazy, but when you add the rest of their kit, the ability for them to fit in turn 2, aggro and cleave, and the fact that they don't have super clear and obvious weaknesses, makes them not only one of the most exciting releases, but also one of the most worthwhile ones too. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, good night.